So Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is in theaters right now, and this time it is swapping director duties over to Gil Keenan, replacing Jason Reitman. So we'll see how this one fares, and we'll have a lot of thoughts in just a second.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
I'm a OG boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my seat, boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another Odd Popcorn for that review. I'm Chris.
I'm Nick.
And before we get into our thoughts on this movie, we want to remind you guys, it helps us out a lot if you like this video to hit like below and subscribe. We're trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers before the end of this year. But yeah, so what is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire about?
So the Spengler family returns to where it all started, the iconic New York firehouse, to team up with the original Ghostbusters, who developed the top secret research lab to take busting ghosts to the next level. But when the discovery of an ancient artifact unleashes an evil force, Ghostbusters, new and old, must join forces to protect their home and save the world from a second ice age.
And what a mouthful for a description, Lord.
Yeah.
I don't know what people consider this, but I guess this is the fifth
Yeah.
entry in the Ghostbusters franchise if you count the 2016 one that everybody wants to seem to ignore.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, everybody forgets about that. So, but it's a direct sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife, and it does pick up like a little bit more ahead than I expected it to. Like we've
Yeah.
got some years and some things have changed. Like you said in the description, we're in New York now. What do you think about this on the whole? I am curious to know how you. I can't remember how you feel about the Afterlife, Ghostbusters Afterlife. Anyway,
Well, so
but how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I guess my opinion on Afterlife is slightly skewed because I did like watch it on a plane with multiple interruptions and obviously on a tiny little screen. But I remember liking it enough, and I feel like that's how I feel about this one. Is I liked it enough. Like it wasn't great, it wasn't terrible, but I liked parts of it, the humor and like parts of it made me giggle. There were some things I definitely didn't like. One thing I was really hoping for that we didn't get, and I'll let you know about that later. But on the whole, like it was, a family fun movie, I guess.
You could do a lot worse. I mean, I think so. For me, because I do want to get into spoilers with this. So warning:
Yeah.
in the future, we'll be talking about some spoilers. But for now, I think it's a mostly enjoyable movie. I think the average person who's like a Ghostbusters fan who goes to see this, especially if you liked the last one, you're gonna have a good time, and you don't need to hear what I say about it. You're gonna go see it, and you're gonna have a good time with it. It's just as entertaining as the last one, maybe even a little more entertaining than the last one actually, because
Well, you're set in New York City instead of middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, which is.
I prefer the New York setting, and I like what they did here. Because I feel like it was different enough from the, not to disparage it too much, but the first one is a little bit of a rehash of the first movie, in the same way that Ghostbusters 2 is a little bit of a rehash of the first movie. I mean, they've kind of been doing this thing, and this one I think mixed it up a little bit more, maybe more than they ever have from the original like plot line. Like they are doing some kind of different things here.
Right.
But actually, the funny thing is, one of the things that it sounds like worked for you is one of the things that didn't work for me, which is the comedy of it. I don't think I ever laughed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think I ever laughed, man.
Like,
They tried to be funny a lot of the time, and I'm not saying it was like felt completely flat, but I just none of it quite worked for me. It was okay. The closest I got was probably Kumail Nanjiani, actually.
Yeah.
Which I don't always love everything he's in, but I thought he was a pretty good addition to this, as goofy of a character as that is.
And I'm not saying
not
it was like
hilarious.
laugh out loud funny by any means, but I definitely like breathed a little hard through my nose a couple of times through the movie. Like
I found Paul Rudd to be the funniest part of the first movie for sure, and I thought I was kind of expecting more comedy from him here, and I don't think they gave him as much comedy to do. And you got a lot. You kind of have to adjust your expectations with, like, some of these people are noticeably much older. And so I feel like their characters kind of change because of that. Like, the biggest one to me is Podcast, because he just doesn't even look like the same kid
right.
anymore.
Yeah.
And a little bit of different personality because he's older too,
Yeah.
I see it in the main character too.
So yeah, like Grace McKenna and Finn Wolfhard, like she's supposed to be 15. She definitely looks like she's 17 or 18. He's supposed to be 18. He definitely looks like he's probably about 20. So maybe, yeah, I guess but it has been a while since the first movie.
The other thing too is I really liked the ice aesthetic.
Yeah.
Around this movie, and even though like it is kind of like borderline cartoonish with like big ice spikes coming out of everything, I thought that works with the Ghostbusters shtick because it is not supposed to be something that's taken overly seriously. I mean, the first movie is much more of a broad comedy than this, so yeah, playing around with the look of this some is fine with me. Any other non-spoiler thoughts about this movie? Because I kind of want to spoil some things.
Yeah, let's spoil it. I'd recommend it. I think it was a fun enough movie to go see. I mean...
Yeah, you won't have a bad time with this. And it's good about its runtime. Like, the pacing's right. So I feel like even though it is about 2 hours, it keeps you entertained. I think kids will be entertained. I wasn't bored or looking at the clock or anything like that. The funny thing is, though, and this is, I got to dip into spoilers for this, so go see the movie before you watch this. But there are like huge plot holes in this one that I am either overly analytical now and I can't watch the movie without overthinking it to death, or just to me there were things where I'm like, I don't understand, and it distracted me, from enjoying the movie completely.
Like what?
And so there's a couple. So one is that Kumail Nanjiani's character has this sphere that we find out later has this spirit inside of it that's like this great evil, and we can get into it. But this is like a tiny little brass prison ball for the spirit.
It's a Pokeball.
And there's a handful of things that bother me about this. So for one thing, Kumail Nanjiani's character doesn't know what he has. It's just something he inherited from his grandmother, and he just happens to bring it to, I can't think of Dan Aykroyd's character's name, but Dan Aykroyd's like shop. And I mean, I guess that part's fine, that it just, a movie has to happen, so it has to be Dan Aykroyd's shop. But he's only wanting like $50 for it, and he's kind of like presented as like a hustler or something. But this thing looks expensive and ornate and everything, and he's only wanting $50 for it, and that's the joke. But then I'm mostly fine with all that until we get to his house,
right.
And he's like, "You want to see where I keep the real crazy stuff?" And he opens up the back room that he just stumbled upon looking for a whatever, I can't remember. And this back room is extremely ornate and everything's like covered in brass and this, fine handwork and like these like a whole suit of armor and all this stuff in it. And there's like this golden claw or brass claw. And that's where the sphere came from. He just yanks it out of there. What would make you think that you discover this room, your grandma's dead, you discover this room, and you only take the brass ball out of there, and you only want $50 for it?
Right.
And you have no concern, you were like estranged from your grandmother, so you have no concern for any heirlooms or anything, you're just a hustler. But you take the one brass ball?
Yeah, and there was like daggers. You could have like taken the brass off of the walls that was covering it along with the pedestal, and like just
so much brass.
Yeah.
But and not even just the fact, like the metal. Like I know brass is not a particular, but this looks like ancient, intricate, hand-done stuff. And he takes the one ball. And
I don't know. It's just the plot point of the movie. They gotta.
That's fine. That's fine. But my bigger one is this, and it's kind of like multi things. But it's there's this whole storyline with the ghost girl, and her like relationship with Phoebe.
Yeah.
And I actually like that part of the movie. I think it was doing a different thing than Ghostbusters usually does, and I think it was interesting. And it almost seems like they were about to do a love story thing here with it, and I was like, oh, okay, fine. But then they kind of don't fully do that. Maybe that is what they were going for. They don't fully do it. But the thing is, she's actually working for the ghost girl that's befriended Phoebe. It's actually all a ploy. She's working for the guy, the evil character of this movie. What's the name of the character? I don't know what the name of the thing is, but the horned creature that's like the main villain of this movie. I can't think of it.
Garuk or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know.
That thing is imprisoned in there, and while it's imprisoned in there, it's somehow still able to communicate with other ghosts. That's not clear to me how it can communicate now. That the point of it being in the prison is that it can't do anything anymore. But somehow it's communicating with ghosts, and not just her, but she is one of them. And it becomes clear that she's like set up to double cross Phoebe and make it so that Phoebe will say the secret incantation. There's a lot of talk and stuff done about we got to get the secret incantation said so that the sphere opens up and the thing can escape and all the ghosts are going to get freed. There's a lot of plot lines running together.
Yeah.
But you got to say the incantation, and there's a lot of close calls. Maybe the incantation almost gets said on like a wax ring thing. That there's a whole thing there. But what ultimately happens is she tricks because they want a relationship. The ghost girl and Phoebe, because they want to take their friendship at least to the next level and like be on the same plane of existence. Phoebe goes and rips her soul out of her body for 2 minutes so that they can both be ghosts and exist together as ghosts. And it was not clear at all to me what the motivation there is, because they're already interacting in all the ways that people interact. They can see each other. They're already talking. They already have a friendship.
But I think it was the whole thing about being connected to the universe and all these different particles, and that's where they were leaning heavily into like the love scenario between these two. Like they're about to kiss, and then no, Phoebe's ghost gets taken over, because that's the whole thing is. And I don't know how, like you're saying, like he's in this brass ball, he shouldn't be able to do whatever he's doing, like, but he can control other ghosts. So he controls Phoebe's ghost to make her say these words because it has to be said from human lips. Like, what is it? Why does that matter? It's still coming out in the air as words.
And all that's fair and good, except that if the only problem is that he needs to control ghosts,
right,
then control any of the other ghosts that are already ghosts that are not like they're already on your team.
But it has to become
because she wants to see her family.
That's the biggest plot point for me. Is like it's got to be in a human words. Okay, but it is coming out of it's English. You're speaking it. Why does it matter if it comes out of a human's mouth versus a ghost mouth?
Well, and the ghost girl. Well, it does come out of a ghost mouth because it's a human that ripped like her soul out, and so her soul is like a ghost version of her. So it's just like any other ghost could have done that for you. I don't know. I just thought of that as a big plot hole, and it kind of makes it where. I don't know. It just felt like there was a lot done in service of that, and it didn't really need to be there. But anyway, that was a lot of talking about one little thing. But it is just it was a major plot hole to me, and the fact that just everything about that ball, it just feels a little, even at its best, it feels a little bit like. It's very predictable. It's like there's a MacGuffin thing. We got to get the MacGuffin or else it does the thing. And then it sends a sky beam up into the air. And then the clouds swirl around the sky beam. It just feels a little bit like, oh man, we're still doing that whole, we're going to do that whole thing again with the sky beam and the swirling clouds.
Right.
But like I said, all that to say, I think we both had a good time in the theater watching it. It's not that bad, it's just not. It's nothing amazing. It's nothing remarkable.
And I think that's probably the biggest, like, not complaint, but like just the weirdest thing. How they were kind of forcing this relationship between these two teenage girls about will they, won't they? But really, it's I don't know. I thought that part was weird. I thought it could have been more of just like a friendship instead of like I'm gonna kill myself for 2 minutes so I can make out with this ghost.
Yeah, it's a huge risk for like not a whole lot of payoff, and then because she can choose to touch things too, like the chess pieces.
That was the weird part. Yeah.
And then the other thing is, a lot of people don't get much to do here because they're trying to cram a lot of things into this movie. So like you don't get a lot from Finn Wolfhard's character. You don't get a lot from like Patton Oswalt's in one scene.
Yeah.
And so it's like we got a whole new character now, and there's like a guy that you could easily. I hate to say this, but I think you could easily forget this character, but there's like the new guy that works on the Ghostbusters team in the basement of the thing.
Yeah, so I'm a fan of that guy. His name's James Acaster. He's like a British comedian, and he's on a bunch of the panel
He seems
shows.
Great, but he's like he just got shoved.
Yeah,
he's shoved into a thing that there's like too many cooks in the kitchen,
Yeah.
So a little bit less trying to do too many things. There's some things that some plot lines that probably could have gotten shortened or cut out a little bit.
Right.
But all in all, I think most people are I'm sure people are gonna leave the theater and be like, I'm so happy to have left the world of visited the world of the Ghostbusters again. And it does a bunch of nods to the original movies. Obviously, like there's some nostalgia stuff, but I think for the most part, it's brief enough in this. It almost bothered me less than it did in Ghostbusters Afterlife because some of it was just like one line that they say to just give you a
Right.
little reminder of that thing instead of really taking a lot of time away. And there's like the librarian ghost from the
Yeah,
first
the
movie and
librarian
stuff like
ghost and
that.
the mayor is the mayor from like the original Ghostbusters.
He's like become mayor. He used to be like the board of
Right.
something or other.
Okay.
But which I thought that was kind of funny because it's like, man, this guy really is hung up on like it's like 40 something years now. This
Yeah.
guy's been hung up on the Ghostbusters.
I've got to
But
say my biggest letdown of the movie is I was just really really hoping that Rick Moranis was going to make an appearance cuz like he's going to be in Shrunk here and like later this year or next year and I was like, please, that was the
That
one
would have
thing
been
I wanted from this movie. It was just like it could have been like one scene, but I don't know.
that would have been very cool. And we didn't get any Sigourney Weaver this time, which we basically
Right.
didn't get her last time either. But they gave her a little nod, so you get the idea. My interpretation was that they're married. So when we see Vinkman again, Bill Murray again, I thought that was kind of an opportunity to bring her back too. Just if you're gonna do just the nostalgia thing, and bring them all out, then
Yeah.
might as well bring her out too. But I guess she didn't. They didn't have anything to do with any of those guys, by the way, either. Like Bill Murray just shows up and he's like,
Barely,
"Can I help?"
yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah,
Besides,
I guess." And
yeah, like Dan Aykroyd has a bigger part, and so
Dan Aykroyd
does-
has a role here, yeah.
and Ernie Hudson as well. But
Ernie Hudson is, but yeah, Bill Murray. I'm surprised they even got him to do this, and I guess he's good to see, but it's not. There was nothing for him to do here. They
Yeah.
could have done less with that. So I don't know. It's a mixed. I'm mixed about it. Is the
Yeah,
point?
same.
And it's weird. It's weird to be mixed about it, but for the most part, it's not. It ain't that bad. Most people enjoy it a lot.
it was fun.
So.
Yeah, it was good enough. What would you give it?
Something like a 6,
I'm right there with you.
5.5, 6.
5.5. I'm gonna lean a little bit higher. I'm gonna say 6.5.
Okay. I think it's a 5.5 for me, but it's a better than okay. It's like
Yeah,
it's worth checking
yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed,
Your
like,
mileage
the
is gonna
visuals.
vary.
Yeah.
I think this did a better job than Afterlife in some ways.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I don't remember.
It's hard to say because you watched it a long
yeah,
time.
because
Yeah.
you watched Afterlife right before going to see this, and I haven't seen that since it came out. Like, and I watched it on a plane. So
And it's interesting because a whole different director here, but what happened is Gil Kenan and Jason Reitman worked on both of these movies together, and they just swapped directing duties. So you can see why they have like a lot of continuity to them, and they work well off each other. But yeah, I guess I would give it a little bit of the edge to this one. But if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you're gonna have a good time.
Bustin' makes you feel good.
So yeah, Bustin' makes me feel good. All right, guys. Well, we will see you in the next one. Appreciate you watching as always, and yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks. See ya.
Thank you.